The air smells like rust and rot. That's the first thing you notice when you wake up, if you sleep at all anymore. The scent clings to everything. Your clothes, your skin, even the inside of your mouth. The rain that used to rinse the world, clean now just spreads the decay. Black droplets fall from ash-gray skies, soaking the ground with a chemical tang that eats through boots and bone if you let it. The lucky ones call it acid rain. The rest of us know better. It's the Earth's final tears, and we drink it because there's nothing else. I remember when cities stood proud, skylines glittering with ambition, streets humming with life. Now they're husks, carcasses, glass towers shattered and leaning, like tired giants. Streets ruptured and crawling with vines that thrive in poisoned soil. Roads are grave sites. The only light comes from fires that never seem to go out, either from riots that never ended, or from chemical leaks deep underground that keep burning, even when there's nothing left to burn. I'm broadcasting from what used to be the eastern edge of Chicago. The lake's gone. Just mud flats and a stretch of rusted wreckage where boats once bobbed in summer sun. Every now and then, I see the bones of gulls, picked clean by the Horde or maybe by the hunger of time. The wind is never quiet anymore. It moans through the broken buildings like it remembers the voices that used to echo here. Sometimes I think I hear them too. Laughter, arguments, music. But then I remember, this place hasn't known joy in years. They say it started with the heat. Or maybe the virus. No one agrees anymore, and maybe it doesn't matter. The world cracked, and when it split open, something ancient crawled out. Some say it was nature's revenge, a curse for how we gutted the planet. Others say it was science, gone wrong. A bioweapon, a parasite, a hunger made flesh. All I know is this: the cities fell fast. The government, gone mostly. What's left are scattered command outposts, static blurred messages on old emergency frequencies, and hollow promises broadcast from bunkers that probably collapsed months ago. If there's a capital now, it's wherever someone with guns and gas has set up a perimeter. The world's not ruled by leaders anymore, it's ruled by survivors. Some good, some not. Out there, past the smoke-choked highways and the oil-slicked rivers, you'll find what's left of us. Scavengers with machetes and homemade armor. Farmers growing fungus in sealed underground tunnels. Wanderers who walk the earth in silence, hunting infected, hunting food, sometimes hunting each other. Then there are the hordes. They don't rot, like the story said they would. Something about the virus keeps them animated. Cells regenerating just enough to keep them shambling forward. They don't sleep. They don't stop. They just listen, somehow, and follow sound until it's gone. That's why this station's rigged with soundproofing and a hand-crank battery. I keep the broadcast short when I can. Static eats energy like we used to eat fast food, but people still listen. I know they do. I've heard their voices on the line, crackling through the frequency like ghosts. Sometimes it's just sobs, sometimes it's coordinates, calls for help, and sometimes it's laughter, twisted and high-pitched, like whoever's out there has stopped pretending we're still human. You learn to tune that out, or maybe you don't. What's left of civilization clings to whatever it can. A few cities have fortified their cores, walled zones guarded by drones and men with dead eyes. If you're not useful, you're left outside the gates, no exceptions. There are communes too, utopian bubbles clinging to old ideals, growing weaker each year as resources run dry and idealism fades like everything else. And then there's the dark. Not just the night, but something worse. Some say there are zones where the sun never rises anymore. Ash clouds or atmospheric collapses, no one knows. All we know is, if you go far enough west, the light stops and the howls start. I stay here, in the shell of this old radio station, room 3B, deep in the basement. Behind 3 layers of steel doors and a barricade of filing cabinets I dragged down myself. I've got solar sheets and a rain trap, but neither's been reliable in weeks. The panels are losing charge. The rain burns when I collect it. I ration it anyway. It's survival. Doesn't matter if it hurts going down. Some nights I think about leaving, heading north where I heard the cold slows them down, or west, chasing rumors of clean water near the mountains. But I stay because someone has to talk. Someone has to remind the world that we're still here, still breathing, still fighting. And if you're out there, if you're still alive, know this, you're not alone. Not yet. Keep your radio on. The world ended one season at a time, bit by bit, until it collapsed all at once. The drought came first. Rivers bone dry. Wells collapsed. The land cracked open like a broken shell. We watched in horror as crops withered in their fields. Then fires sparked on parched hillsides and swept through towns, turning forests into ash. By the time the rains returned, they were poisoned. Acid clouds formed overhead. And when the sky finally cracked, black droplets scoured the earth, washing away what little green remained. I speak to you now from the skeleton of New Orleans, once a city of music and wet streets shimmering under gaslight. It lies beneath 6 feet of mud, half submerged in brackish rot. The Mississippi overflowed its banks for months, no levee strong enough against the combined force of rising seas and river floods. The French Quarter's balconies still tilt, balconies proud once, now clinging to shattered brick. Every street lamp drowned in sludge, every echo replaced by the hush of decay. Up north, Chicago's skyline has become a forest, vines thicker. Then telephone poles twist around steel towers whose glass bones glint like teeth in the overcast sun. The lake vanished, retreating as glaciers melted upstream, then refrozen into bitter ice storms that battered what remained. When the temperature plunged, the rivers flooded again, flooding more than they ever had, carrying corpses and debris into neighborhoods that once prided themselves on order. Out west, California is one vast wildfire scar. The mountains glow like embers at dusk, and even when the fires die, a lingering haze turns the sun into a dull copper coin. The smell of burning pine drifts on the hot winds, mingling with dust so thick you can taste it in your throat. Roadways are impassable, draped in blackened carcasses of vehicles and charred remains of roadside diners. But nothing matches the horror of the storm we call the Crimson Night. A hurricane of such ferocity that it tore the Gulf Coast apart, revealing new coves of saltwater and swallowing coastal towns whole. The sky burned a violent red as it passed, and when it left, the air still glowed faintly, like the world had been set alight and never fully cooled. Humanity tried to rally. Governments set curfews, martial law, distribution centers, but the supply chains were already shattered by floods, heat waves, and fire. The very notion of borders became meaningless when entire states surrendered to the elements. In their place rose factions, paramilitary enclaves that hoarded fuel and medicine, underground communes that attempted sustainable farming beneath metal domes, ragtag bands of scavengers who moved from one ruined mall to the next, searching for canned goods and batteries. Institutions collapsed in the blink of an eye. Banks, empty vaults, universities, hollow halls. Courts and parliaments became myths spoken of in static-filled broadcasts. The only order left came from whoever had the guns and the generators. Most of them set up shop in reinforced high-rises. Once, gleaming corporate towers, now dark citadels guarded by spray-painted warnings. Keep out, violator will be shot. Beyond the walls of those city-states, the world is free for the taking, or for the walking dead. You've heard me warn before about the Horde. They didn't follow the pattern of decay we expected. The virus, they say, rewired them. They don't decompose. Instead, their bodies become steel-hard shells, perpetually animated by nothing but instinct and a low, guttural hunger. They emerge en masse where they detect sound, machinery, voices, radios, even the static humming through. The wires can draw them near. I spend most days underground, here in Sector C of this old broadcast station. The surface is a tomb of twisted metal and broken glass, but I still climb the stairs when the batteries die, just to test the air. Sometimes I stand on the roof and peer through splintered panels at the horizon, skeletal rooftops swallowed. By vines, distant columns of smoke rising, one of the few signs of life or unlife. Between the shallow graves of cars on the freeway and the abandoned playgrounds choked with weeds, you'll find survivor camps. Few and far between, a blockaded gas station with scavenged solar cells, a group of ex-engineers in a repurposed church basement, trying to coax algae to grow in murky rainwater, nomads on horseback crossing the melted deserts of Arizona, following, whispers of a clean spring near Flagstaff. Every community has its price. Food for labor, fuel for protection, water for blood. Trust is a currency rarer than gold. Sometimes a camp broadcasts its coordinates in hopes of recruits. More often, the signal is a trap, luring desperate ears to their doom. I still broadcast, but I mask my location behind layers of code and time-shifted loops. If they want to find me, they'll have to wade through the static themselves. The sky above us has not seen a true blue dawn since the great collapse of 22. Even the night is a murky bruise. No stars, only the dull glow of distant wildfires and the red-tinged clouds of the crimson night. When the wind blows, it carries the scent of salt water, burning embers, and something fouler. Something I can't name that sticks in your mind long after you've scrubbed it from your skin. And still, out there, we struggle. We build barricades and ration bullets. We scavenge. For seeds and jury-rigged solar panels, we record our stories on airwaves, hoping someone, somewhere, turning a dial in a hidden shelter, will hear our voices and know. We refuse to vanish without a trace. So I talk. I describe the broken horizon, the ragged silhouettes of towers crumbling into dust, the last embers of civilization crackling in the darkness. I remind you of landmarks you once knew. The arch in St. Louis now a mangled skeleton. The Golden Gate Bridge half submerged in mud. The Space Needle leaning like a drunken sentinel over Seattle's flooded streets. This is the world as it stands. Broken, bleeding, and waiting for dawn. But dawn hasn't come. Not yet. And maybe it won't. All we have is the promise of another broadcast, another heartbeat crackling through copper wires. Another plea. Hold on. Keep listening. Don't let the silence win. I'm the voice in your radio, the one you swear you've heard before. I'm Miles Harrington. Though names don't mean much anymore, I cling to mine like a talisman. Before the world shattered, I was a sound engineer at a local station. Mixing board in front of me, coffees at my side, the hum of plugs and cables my everyday soundtrack. Now that station is a bunker in Sector C, and the mixing board's my only companion. It's where I carve out these broadcasts, channeling everything I'm too afraid to say out loud into the night. Each dawn, or what passes for dawn under these toxic skies, I crank the old hand generator until my arms ache, feed current into the transmitter, and watch as the little meter flickers to life. It's a ritual as necessary as breath. The rest of my day is spent scavenging. I venture to level 2 of the Greenway Mall ruins for canned goods, past dead bodies and scavengers who ask 3 questions before firing a warning shot. I learn which doors squeak less to avoid warning the Horde, which pipes still drip with drinkable water, and which shelves have collapsed into mountains of rusted cans. I'm neither soldier nor scientist. I'm just a storyteller with a radio mic. But in this broken world, that role can be just as vital as any rifle or research lab. I broadcast coordinates for water caches I find. I share warnings when I hear raiders on the move. I improvise mental maps of toxic fallout zones and safe corridors. I catalog rumors of underground springs near Memphis or a hydroponics bunker outside Detroit. And every night I read the names of callers who weren't so lucky. Static shredded voices that crackle through, offering their last messages. It's a tribute, an act of remembrance. Why do I keep going? Because silence is worse than death. Because I still believe that somewhere, if everyone listens, a community might gather, a plan might form, and we might build something new from these ashes. Hope isn't a shield, it's a hammer. It breaks the barriers between us and the future we want, and responsibility. That's the other hammer. If I die, who will speak for the ones who can't? Who will thread our scattered stories together? Sometimes I think it's about connection, There was a day not so long ago when I stumbled upon another broadcaster, a woman in Sector B, using a solar-powered rig. We spoke for hours across the ether. She'd found a pocket of survivors in the Appalachians. I told her about the waterlogged graves of New Orleans. We swapped tips on antenna alignment and wind patterns, and for that brief flicker of conversation, the loneliness eased. Then, one day, her signal cut out. I tuned every frequency within range, but only static answered. I suspect the Horde found her as she set out to check solar panels. I broadcast her name for a week. It's all I could do. I had a family once. 2 daughters, Clara, age 9, and little Rosa, 5, and a wife, Jenna. We lived in a house on the north side, backyard garden full of tomatoes, front porch steps where Jenna sipped tea each morning. We argued about the news back then. Climate change, we muttered at dinner. Too political, I said, and so far away. Then the floods came, the storms, then the fires. By the time the Horde shuffled from town to town, we were already reeling. I lost them all on the night of the Crimson Night. I happened to be on air, broadcasting ahead of the storm surge, begging people to evacuate. I told Jenna to get south. I'd look for a ride out of the city. I thought we had time. I thought my voice could save us. But the power grid failed mid-broadcast, the signal died, and the storm hit while I was in the stairwell. I crawled through, chest-high mud, yelling their names. But water and fire claimed them before I could reach our car. When I finally emerged, hours later, if not days, there was nothing. No car, no garden, no footprints. Only a shattered front door and a silence that roared in my ears. I imagine I stood there until the acid rain washed me clean. Then I stumbled here to this station, clutching my old recorder and a handful of family photos sealed in plastic. I taped those photos to the wall above my desk. Images of Sunday breakfasts, Christmas mornings, backyard picnics. They keep my heart tethered to a world I can't resurrect. I wake in the metal cot behind the generator room, rubbing sleep from my eyes. I climb the fire escape ladder to the roof hatch and peek through the broken panels at the sky. Gray, red, mustard-toned, depending on the wind. If I detect no distant thunder or plume of black smoke, I lower the hatch and breathe. I don my patched leather jacket, insulation, a half-dozen pockets for ammo and batteries, and lace up reinforced boots. I slip a cloth mask over my mouth and nose. It's the only barrier against the ash that turns lungs into riddled sponges. I pack water canteens, protein bars, and a radio scanner alongside my pistol. I map my route on a grease-stained clipboard, planning stops at abandoned pharmacies or grocery storerooms. By mid-afternoon, I return with my haul. I sort supplies. Rations for me, rations for sharing in the next community broadcast. Then I scroll through the day's notes, new hazards, sightings of the Horde, rumors of survivors, and draft the script. I light a single bulb above the mixing, board and set the meter. The world outside might be falling apart, but in this room, order still matters. I go live at dusk. For 30 minutes I speak in gentle urgency. This is Miles Harrington, Sector C radio. Coordinates to a freshwater cache at 34.0522 degree N, 118 town 2437 degree W. Watch for roving infected near the train yard. If you have intel on the Cahokia commune, send it along. And remember, if you're out there, you're not alone. Then I cue static loops and power down. Before sleep, I stand at the wall of photos. I talk to them, whisper apologies, recount the day's haul. Promise I won't give up. Sometimes I place a fresh picture of a caller whose name I read that evening. A ledger in my pocket keeps their names, the date they called, the message they left. In darkness, I trace their handwriting, imagining a future where those messages weave into a tapestry of survival. Some nights tears leak onto the mixing board. I remember Jenna's laughter, the way Clara's hair curled in the sunlight, Rosa's tiny hand clutching my finger. The static hum becomes a chorus of ghosts urging, forward. If I let grief swallow me, then all this effort becomes nothing. Better to wear grief like armor, heavy but protective. I still have dreams, lucid ones, or I'm back in that house chasing my daughters across a green lawn. Then I wake to the rattling of pipes and the slow drip of acid rain in the courtyard. And I remind myself, dream or no dream, the world still needs my voice. My failures have taught me that words can be weapons or beacons. I choose beacon. Yesterday, I picked up a faint signal, an old pub in Denver where survivors have repurposed the basement as a makeshift clinic. They're running low on antibiotics and fuel, but have a working radio rig. They're tracking weather patterns, hoping for a cold front to slow the infected. I patched through my notes on scavenging fuel cells and sent them an edited loop of rainfall to mask their broadcasts from the Horde's hearing. That's the moment I felt it. A surge of purpose, like an electric pulse through my veins. It's not enough to survive, not enough to broadcast coordinates and warnings. We need a network, a living web of voices and faces, of shared resources and shared hope. If the Horde can follow our sound, then we'll outpace them with it. So, here I stand, mic in hand, heart in rubble, eyes on the horizon. Miles Harrington, storyteller and scavenger, radio operator and reluctant hero of a world gone mad. I carry loss like a second skin, but beneath it I carry hope. Wild, stubborn, unkillable. This is who I am. A survivor who survived by telling. Stories by naming the fallen, by mapping the lost and lighting the way for the next weary traveler. If you're out there listening in the dark, know this. I've walked the ash-choked streets so you don't have to walk them alone. I've heard the Horde's ragged chorus so you can stay one step ahead. I've cried tears for my daughters so you can remember what you fight for. And I'll keep calling out names, coordinates, warnings, until a new dawn finally breaks, or until there's no echo left in the air. Until then, I am here. I am Miles Harrington, and I will not be silenced. I've spent the last week tracking the storms, both the weather kind and the living kind. We thought the world would break under, heat or flood. Instead, it broke under both. The climate collapsed on one side, the Horde on the other, and now our lives hang in the razor edge between scorching sun and ravenous death. It began, as most disasters do, gradually. An extra week of 110-degree for summers, rivers dropping to trickles, parched earth chalk white under a merciless sun. By 2022, the NOAA reported average global temperatures 2.7 degrees C above pre-industrial levels. What they didn't warn us was the knock-on effect. The jet stream buckled, trapping heat domes over the Midwest and Southwest for months on end. Crops failed, reservoirs dried. In the spring of 23, entire aquifers collapsed, causing sinkholes that swallowed farms whole. Where I broadcast from, formerly Chicago's eastern shore, the shoreline has retreated 12 miles. Lake Michigan shrank to puddles of algae-choked muck. Temperatures routinely top 120 degrees. Asphalt becomes molten in midday sun, and the few trees left curl their leaves inward, as if in prayer. The mercury gauge stations we installed on rooftops read like an indictment. 124.6 degree at noon, 118.3 degree at dusk, 105 degree at dawn. Then, the rains came, slow at first, dark gray droplets spattering on tin roofs. But these were no salvation. The acid rain was born from coal-powered cloud seeding experiments gone awry, and the meltdown of industrial chemical plants. Each drop carries pH levels below 4.0, enough to burn skin, corrode metal, and poison groundwater. We scrambled to collect runoff in barrels, but each bucketful needs settling and charcoal filtration, and even then, drinking it stings. After settling particulates, add 8 drops of household bleach, 5% 6% sodium hypochlorite per gallon, let. Sit 30 minutes, then filter again through clean cloth. Crush hardwood charcoal into coarse granules. Layer beneath gravel and sand in a sealed container. Slow drip acid rain through this, then chlorinate. While the climate strangled us, the virus exploded. No one knows whether it was a mutated pathogen unleashed by thawing permafrost or a bioweapon that broke containment during the panic. The first reports came from Memphis, patients with high fevers and convulsions who, in their final throes, attacked medical staff. Within 72 hours of exposure, victims exhibited necrotic lesions and extreme aggression. Post-mortem, neural tissue showed unusual oxidative enzymes we still can't fully neutralize. Those enzymes keep brainstem reflexes active, animating corpses long past cell death. The R0 value of this pathogen is off the charts. Each infected person, or corpse, transmits to an average of 14 new hosts within 24 hours. No vaccine, no cure, no antiviral even marginally effective. When a city falls, it falls overnight. Within a week, the perimeter of the Horde extends for miles, an ever-shifting, endless tide of shambling bodies dragging themselves toward any noise or movement. Wrap engine parts and generators in old carpet or blankets to muffle machinery. When walking outside, move during midday storms or acid rain. Sounds of raindrops mask footsteps. Use two-way radios at minimum volume. Tuck them inside clothing. Municipal supplies are long gone. Wells run dry or collapse. Natural springs still flow in isolated rural zones, but reaching them means days of travel. Through Horde territory, the wild is not forgiving. Game populations collapsed under heat and starvation. Foraging yields only poisonous plants or mutated insects with acidic exoskeletons. Canned goods and abandoned buildings run scarce. Most caches have been cleaned out months ago. Gasoline spoils. In weeks without additives. Diesel in months. Many pumps are unusable, stripped of hoses, or flooded. Solar arrays degrade under acid rain. Wind turbines seize under dust abrasion. Every sunrise is another roll of the dice. We ration hope as tightly as bullets. Everyone you meet has a story of death behind them. A friend who snapped, a partner who fled into the wilds and never returned, a child taken by the Horde. Trust deteriorates faster than flesh in the desert heat. I wake each day to the low hum of my pedal generator on backup batteries. If those die, I'm deaf. My water rations are down to a gallon every 2 days. Today, I drank half a canteen. Before dawn, food is cobbled together. Protein bars smuggled from a level 3 grocery stash, freeze-dried rations traded with the engineers in Sector B. Fuel? I've got 2 cans of methanol left. Enough to power the hand-crank generator twice. After that, it's pedal power or darkness. When I'm forced above ground, the air is a furnace. I wear a bundled gas mask. Filters change every 3 hours. But spares are nearly gone. My jacket's lined with makeshift ice packs, frozen from last winter's blizzard, still going after 4 months in a thermos. They buy me an hour of decent core temperature before sweat condenses and runs down my spine like oil. Here's the brutal science. Rising temperatures accelerate organic decay, releasing more greenhouse gases. Methane from wetlands, CO2 from forests incinerated by wildfires. That traps more heat, driving temperatures higher. In weakened bodies, the virus replicates faster in warmer tissues, increasing transmission rates. What began as separate catastrophes has fused into a synergistic nightmare. Heat fuels fire. Fire destroys habitat. Destroyed habitat breeds disease. Disease kills survivors faster than heat alone ever could. Seek underground parking garages or subway tunnels. Temperatures there are 20 to 30 degrees cooler. But watch for Horde congregations. These zones become nesting grounds for infected. If you need to move in daylight, wrap reflective emergency blankets around exposed gear. Reflective surfaces confuse. Infrared drones and slow infection detection. Keep a hand-drawn atlas in waterproof cases. Mark water, fuel, and medical supply caches. Exchange updates with other broadcasters on staggered frequencies to avoid tracking. Identify Amaranthus retroflexus, pigweed. It thrives in dry soil, is rich in protein and vitamins. Boil with charcoal filtration to neutralize mild toxins introduced by acid rain. This week, satellite uplinks, when they work, show the next whirlwind forming over Kansas. A supercell spinning at 200 mph, capable of depositing acidic hail the size of baseballs. That storm will sweep east in 48 hours, ripping through shelters and washing unburied bodies into the streets. The Horde will converge on floodwaters like sharks to blood. I can track their approach by the tremors of thousands of feet pounding. Pavement. The ground reverberates, I feel it in my bones. Tonight I'll increase broadcast power, draw them close for a moment, then switch to a decoy transmitter I built in the sewers beneath Sector D. Once they swarm that signal, I'll slip through the broken viaducts to the east, replenishing my water reserves from an old cistern I located last month. All my science, all my data, all my plotted escape routes. This crisis ultimately comes down to people. How long before fear fractures the strongest alliance? How many more tragedies until we stop saving strangers because we can't even save ourselves? I've watched compound settings dissolve into gunfights over a single fuel drum. I've seen surgeons refuse treatment without payment in bullets. The mirror stares back. The same virus that animates the dead also lurks in our hearts. Yet there are glimmers. Small, stubborn embers. A medic's convoy turned back to rescue a wandering child. A farmer's commune that traded chicken manure for seeds with a scavenger guild. A whispered network of scientists attempting to synthesize an antiviral enzyme that degrades the zombies' regenerative proteins. We don't have the luxury of time. By my calculations, if global temperatures continue rising at 0.7 degrees Celsius per decade, we'll pass the 3.6 degree threshold by 2030, beyond the point of no return for many ecosystems. Each fraction of a degree means longer heat waves, bigger storms, faster virus replication. That supercell over Kansas could herald the next cascade event: levee breaches, chemical plant explosions, mass migrations toward already overrun cities, and through it all, the Horde grows. No funeral pyres can keep pace with their numbers. Each infection cycle produces hundreds more. Evacuation routes clog with the dead. Safe zones shrink. Air becomes unbreathable, water becomes undrinkable. Collect dust masks, furnace filters, any particulate barrier. Replace hourly and high toxicity zones. Set nightly check-ins on adjacent frequencies. Share updated maps and coded bulletins. Even a handful of wheatgrass sprouts in hydroponic containers can yield vitamins to stave off scurvy. Move in silence. When traveling, use the storms to your advantage. Keep engines off, voices hushed, footsteps light. Above all, remember the climate crisis and the undead crisis feed one another. If you outrun one, you may still be devoured by the other. Stay informed, stay flexible, and most importantly, stay alive. I'll sign off now. The Supercell's timeline demands I shift to ciphered broadcasts. If you can hear my voice past the storm, past the Horde, past the acid rain, know this is Miles Harrington, still recording, still surviving. I'll see you on the other side of the next horizon, if there is one. The world's weight is pressing in from every direction, and today it feels as though it might crush me. I can barely lift the lid on my last water barrel without a sickening sense of dread. 3 canteens remain, and I've been rationing a half cup every 4 hours. My throat feels like sandpaper. Each swallow is a reminder that tomorrow may not bring more. Outside, the wind is picking up again, an acrid gale full of ash and chemical spores. I strapped a makeshift wind vane to the roof hatch yesterday so I'd know when these dust storms roll over the city. They're getting fiercer, lasting longer, swallowing entire blocks under choking gray blankets that bruise the sun into pathetic orange discs. The storm shut down my solar panels for days, sometimes weeks, and every hour in darkness is one fewer broadcast I can make, and one step closer to silence. It wasn't supposed to be like this. The plan was simple: secure the station, gather, supplies from the mall ruins, broadcast warnings, and maybe, just maybe, draw others to safety. But each scavenging run yields less than the one before. Yesterday, the Level 2 food court offered nothing but cracked coffee beans and a single, half-eaten protein bar. I swallowed that bar in 2 bites, savoring every crumb as if it were ambrosia. When I climbed down from the metal catwalk into the mall parking deck, I found tire tracks leading to the west exit. Fresh tracks. Raiders. The same ones who ambushed the engineer convoy 2 days ago, stealing fuel and beating the survivors to leave them bleeding in the gutter. I knew the moment I saw the tracks. They traveled fast, modified SUVs with reinforced bumpers and roof rack cages. I can't outrun them. My bike's too slow. The street's too clogged with debris. I slipped back into the stairwell, holding my breath as their engines snarled outside. A pair of them dismounted, rifles slung across their backs, boots clacking on concrete. Their voices echoed up the shaft. Found any cans? Scrounger's been through. Nothing left. Let's torch it and move on. I crouched in the shadows, knife hilt in sweaty hand, ready to bolt. But then they pulled out spray cans and torches, starting a fire in a corner of the deck. Flames licked the concrete, smoke curling upward in black plumes that would draw the horde like moths to flame. They moved on before the inferno gave off too much heat. Their goal was distraction, to drive the undead to this side of town while they raided from the other. I watched the fire burn, then slipped away, heart hammering. When I reached a side exit, I sprinted back to the station, breath ragged, mind racing. The raiders would return with the horde. It was only a matter of time. This morning, insulated by the lull between dust storms, I ventured east along the submerged remains of Stony Island Avenue. A tip had come through on a low-power frequency. A small group of survivors holed up in a repurposed warehouse, trading seeds for water. It sounded promising, a possible ally in a world that's taught me not to trust easily. I navigated around, collapsed overpasses, careful to avoid the deep, fetid pools where the drains had burst. My gas mask fogged with condensation, each exhale a cloud of re-inhaled spores. I passed the skeletal frame of an armored truck half buried in mud, its cargo doors flung open and empty. I left an extra protein bar inside for whoever might come looking, a small act of faith in humanity. At the warehouse, the gates were chained shut, barbed wire looped across the top. I pounded on the metal door with the butt of my rifle, calling out the safe word the broadcaster in Sector B had given, Red Bird. The chain rattled, then snapped. Inside, half a dozen faces turned toward me, eyes hollow but alert. They were a mismatched clan, a burnt-out mechanic named Dolly, her knuckles black from grease, an elderly nurse called Ramon, who still kept a battered medical kit in his backpack, and two teenagers, Lena and Jace, who looked more ghost than flesh. They ushered me inside, slamming the door and locking it. Behind the safety of reinforced walls, I traded my directions to a nearby cistern for a quart of water and a hand-rolled cigarette. The warehouse floor was stacked with pallets of plastic. Containers. They'd scavenged them from a collapsed bottling plant. Ramon boiled acid rain runoff in 5-gallon drums, then filtered it through a charcoal sand rig Dolly cobbled together from library books and scrap pipe. They asked questions. "Can you broadcast more often?" Lena whispered. "Do you know of any farms still producing?" Jace's voice shook. "Where can we get medicine for scabies?" Ramon demanded. I answered what I could. I handed Ramon a set of chlorination instructions I'd sketched out the night before. For the teens, I traced routes to the botanical greenhouse at the old university campus, where rumor said fungus cultivation had taken off underground. They scribbled frantically, hope flickering in their eyes, but Dolly's gaze was distant. She pressed a crude blueprint into my hand, an underground hydroponics shelter north of here near the train yards. She called it Haven Silo. She'd heard of it from a wandering nomad. A myth, she said, but one they all wanted to believe. A place where water was collected, crops grown, and electricity still hummed. Could I confirm it? Could I broadcast its frequency so others could join? I hesitated. If Haven Silo existed, it could be salvation for dozens, maybe hundreds. But if it were a trap, broadcasting its coordinates would doom anyone who tried to reach it, including Dolly's clan. I left with their water and a promise. I'd investigate Haven's silo. Dolly's map led me across the crumbling viaducts toward the rail yards, a maze of twisted tracks and rusted boxcars. Each creak in the metal echoed like a warning. More than once I ducked as a horde shambled past on the other side of a broken wall, their guttural moans vibrating through my chest. The rail yard was silent at first, fog rising from puddles in the tracks. I searched for the entrance Dolly had marked. A side door in a decaying freight shed. I found it half buried in brick rubble, rusted hinges barely holding. I pried it open, flashlight slicing through the darkness. Inside was a metal hatch, bolted shut. Carved into the lid was a faded emblem, an ear of wheat circled by gears. My pulse spiked. This was no random scavenger's hideout. This was organized. Someone had planned for this apocalypse. Someone with the resources to build an underground farm. I pulled off my gas mask, the stale air hitting my lungs like a punch. I raised the hatch with a crowbar. It groaned. Beneath lay a ladder descending into blackness. My radio crackled in my coat pocket. Sector C check-in time. Should I descend now? Or should I wait until I've mapped a secondary exit? Could I trust the symbol of the wheat and gears? Was this Haven silo? Or a raider trap meant to lure in scavengers? My inner voice screamed caution. My heart shouted curiosity. Before I could decide, the ground trembled under a distant roar. I looked up through a hole in the freight shed's roof. A sheet of copper clouds was rolling over the city. A gravity storm, a phenomenon where atmospheric pressure drops suddenly, sucking moisture and dust into towering funnels. They're unpredictable, violent, and capable of pulverizing concrete. I sprinted back to the station, mud sucking at each step. By the time I slammed the hatch closed behind me, the first sheets of acidic hail were splattering against the broadcast window. I taped over the cracked glass as best I could, sealing gaps with duct tape and my own shirt scraps. In the control room, I cranked the generator and prepared to broadcast an emergency alert. Gravity storm inbound. Seek subterranean shelter. Hold tight for coordinates to fallback bunker. But I realized, unless I verify Haven Silo, I can't send people on a journey that might lead them into the jaws of the Horde or into a sealed silo with no escape hatch. I sat before the microphone, lights flickering with generator surges. My reflection stared back from the glass faceplate. Gaunt cheeks, eyes rimmed with exhaustion, lips cracked. Would I betray hope by sending radio listeners into danger? Or would ignoring Dolly's clan leave them and countless others stranded, without even a rumor to follow? Hope is a weapon I wield carefully. It can rally the weary or lure them to their deaths. In the static between transmissions, I'm weighed down by every name I've called out. The missing, the fallen, the desperate. Each name is a promise I made to remember. But did I promise them salvation? Or only, you are not alone? I pressed a hand to the mixing board, scarred by burns from soldering generators. The rumble of thunder vibrated through the floor. In that moment, I made a choice. I will descend into the unknown. I will verify Haven Silo's existence. I will risk my life so that hope can be more than a whisper in the void. I gathered supplies. 2 of the last water canteens, a handful of protein bars, extra gas mask filters, a roll of barbed wire tape, and a night vision monocular I salvaged from Sector B's laboratory. I slipped Dolly's map into my jacket, along with Ramon's chlorination kit and a pair of flares, 1 to signal rescue, 1 to signal retreat. Before I walk into that freight shed again, I broadcast a brief notice. This is Miles Harrington, Sector C radio. If you hear static in the next half hour, it means I've moved to verify a potential underground haven north of the rail yards. If my signal cuts out completely, do not attempt immediate pursuit. I will broadcast safe exit routes once I confirm the site. Hold the line, stay alive. I cut the transmission and wrenched the microphone cord free, leaving the station in near silence. The acid rain peeled paint from the walls. The echo of drops sounded like distant gunfire. I gathered supplies, 2 of the last water canteens, a handful of protein bars, extra gas mask filters, a roll of barbed wire tape, and a night vision monocular I salvaged from Sector B's laboratory. I slipped Dolly's map into my jacket, along with Ramon's chlorination kit and a pair of flares, 1 to signal rescue, 1 to signal retreat. Before I walk into that freight shed again, I broadcast a brief notice. This is Miles Harrington, Sector C radio. If you hear static in the next half hour, It means I've moved to verify a potential underground haven north of the rail yards. If my signal cuts out completely, do not attempt immediate pursuit. I will broadcast safe exit. Routes, once I confirm the site, hold the line, stay alive. I pressed a final earbud to tune out the generator's hum and stepped into the storm. Each hailstone latched onto my jacket like hot embers. I kept my head low, sprinting across the courtyard toward the freight shed. The wind howled, tearing at my clothes, rattling the hatch behind me. At the entrance, I paused to light a single flare, its red glow slicing through the gloom, painting the walls of the shed in blood-like brilliance. Then I descended the ladder, heart thrumming like a percussion track. Below, the air was cool, too cool for surface structures. My flashlight beam revealed concrete walls lined with metal conduits, vents expelling stale air in steady puffs. Corridor stretched before me, illuminated by dim phosphorescent strips. Yellow plastic crates marked emergency hydroponics lay stacked neatly. A low hum echoed somewhere deeper. A spark of something I haven't felt in months bloomed in. My chest, possibility. The ladder behind me rattles with every heartbeat. Ahead lies the heart of the mystery, Haven Silo. In these coming hours, I'll uncover whether it's salvation or slaughter, and whether hope, like water, can still flow in a world cracked by fire, flood, and the undead. Stay tuned. Keep your dial set. If I make it through, I'll bring you back the coordinates. If I don't, remember every lesson I've taught you. Fight for every drop of water, every breath of air, every flicker of light. You are not alone. And the next chapter is coming. Whether I live to broadcast it or not, I drop the flare to the ground and its red phosphor crackles, igniting a halo of light that paints the concrete walls blood bright. My breath comes in ragged gasps, and the hum beneath my feet throbs with power, an alien pulse in a world long silenced. This is it, the heart of Haven Silo. I pause at the top of the ladder and survey the underground hall. Metal pipes line the walls, feeding nutrient solution to clusters of leafy green shoots breaking through shallow trays. Rows of solar lamps glow with a harsh white glare, powered by banks of sealed batteries stacked against a far wall. A narrow corridor branches left and right, each doorway stamped with faded symbols. A droplet for water, a wheat stalk for food, and, most startling of all, a lightning bolt for power. My hands tremble as I press my palm to the steel hatch. Memories flash, Jenna's gentle fingertips tracing my palm, Clara's laughter echoing in our sunlit kitchen, Rosa's tiny voice calling Daddy. I swallow hard and lift my radio handset. To the world above, I whisper, "This is Miles Harrington. I found a hydroponics hub, water filtration, and a power array still online. I repeat, Haven Silo is real." Silence answers. I brace myself, half expecting the Horde to shamble through the hatch behind me. I lower the radio and slip through, one foot onto the slick floor. Below, the air smells of damp earth and fertile green, an alien comfort after months of dust and rot. To my left, a water treatment room hums with moving membranes filtering brackish groundwater through molecular sieves. A digital display flickers, pH 7.2, residual chlorine levels stable, output 400 gallons per day. Beside it, an industrial distiller bubbles away, condensing steam into polished steel canisters. I kneel, dip my hand into a clear pool, and cup my palm. The water is cold and sweet, pure as spring. Tears sting behind my mask. A plaque on the wall reads, Project Oasis 2021, stamped with a corporate logo I barely recognize, a conglomerate that funded climate resilience prototypes. They'd hidden this bunker before the world collapsed, stockpiled resources and tech to weather the storm they helped create. That knowledge infuriates me. They had the means to save us, but fled underground, leaving billions to perish on scorched earth. I climb a graded catwalk to the hydroponics bay. Beneath the bright lamps, rows of lettuce, amaranth, barley, and even a small stand of tomato vines flourish in nutrient-rich solution. I pick a leaf of lettuce and taste it, crisp, earthy, alive. It's the first fresh food I've tasted since the Crimson Night. I nearly crumble to the floor, tears slipping down my cheeks onto my jacket. A klaxon suddenly wails. A harsh pulse of red strobes flashes. My heart hammers as I spin toward the corridor. A speaker crackles overhead. Alert! Unauthorized entry detected. Security lockdown in T-minus 2 minutes. My chest tightens. I duck into a side room labeled Armory and Access Controls. Inside, racks of weapons line the walls. Rifles, pistols, crossbows, and ammo stored in sealed lockers. A terminal blinks. Override protocol? It demands a 4-digit passcode. I stare, mind racing. If I override lockdown, I can broadcast safe route coordinates and summon survivors here. But I'll also breach security, possibly triggering armed defense drones or sentinel guards. If I wait, I risk getting trapped as the Horde discovers. The hatch behind me. I press my palm to the biometric scanner. A voiceover advises, all personnel must be cleared for Phase 2 activation. My breath clouds. Personnel. I'm an interloper, a ghost in their plan. My radio is still, clutched in my hand. If I transmit, the signal will guide not only survivors, but also hostile scavengers and infected drawn by the hum of generators. The countdown on the speaker dips to 10 seconds. Sweat drips down my temple. I force myself calm. One choice. Override. Security. Bring life to hundreds, maybe thousands, and risk unleashing defenses that will view outsiders as threats. Another choice. Retreat. Seal the hatch and keep Haven's silo secret until I learn more, leaving Dolly's clan and countless others to fight on the surface. The number 6 flashes on the terminal's countdown. I slam my palm down, willing the scanner to accept me. The terminal buzzes, then clicks. Access granted. A flood of green light washes the panel. I race to the communications hub deeper in the silo. A room lined with monitors and transmitters, salvaged from pre-collapse networks. Slap the headset on, thumb hovering over the talk switch. The transmitter powers up, frequencies twinkling across the dial. My voice, hoarse but resolute, echoes through the underground corridors and out into the dark world above. This is Miles Harrington, Sector C radio, calling all survivors. Coordinates locked to 41.878 degree N. 87.6298 dBW, bearing 110 degree Haven Silo, an underground sanctuary with clean water, power, and fresh food. Repeat, Haven Silo is operational. Bring your wounded, bring your weary, bring your hope. I hold the I button long enough to let my words burn into the ether, then release. A single perfect broadcast, no static, no interference. I collapse against the console, adrenaline flooding through me like wildfire. Sirens wail in the distance, both the silo's internal alarms and distant Horde clicks echoing through the vents. I know the moment those first survivors tear into the hatch, the generator hum will intensify, drawing the Horde into the tunnels. I have seconds to prepare. A low tremor rattles the floor. I glance at the seismic readout. A magnitude 4.2 tremor centered somewhere above ground. Likely the Horde's pressure on the old viaducts or raiders using explosives to funnel the infected. Suddenly, dust and small debris rain through cracks. In the ceiling, the tremor intensifies. Stone plates shift overhead. The monolithic supports groan, and I realize this bunker wasn't designed for sustained seismic collapse. If the ground above caves in, these corridors will become a death trap. I rip a panel off the wall, exposing conduit marked emergency vent. I grab a wrench and open the valve, sending a whoosh of stale air racing through the vents to mask the humming generators. At least then the sound won't betray our location so quickly. Sprint back toward the hatch, crouching behind a stack of crates, rifle aimed at the ladder. I wait. The countdown in my mind slows. I remember the faces of those who called into my broadcast, shaking with fear, begging for coordinates. I remember the nights talking to Jenna, promising I'd bring her home. I remember the look on Dolly's face when she handed me that map. And I remember my daughters, bright, trusting, full of wonder. I owe them this act of defiance against a world that tried to snuff out hope. A figure appears in the hatches, gloom. a gaunt silhouette clutching a makeshift lantern. Then another emerges, then dozens stumbling down the ladder with tears and curses, relief and wonder mixing on their faces. I lower my rifle, stepping into the red glare of the lanterns. "Welcome," I whisper, voice breaking. But behind them I glimpse pale shapes shuffling across the hatch rim. Those damned corpses drawn by the hum. Their eyes glow in the lantern light. Their moans swirl like hungry wind. I shout, "Inside! Close the hatch now!" And men and women scramble over one another, banging the hatch shut. I wrench the bolts tight as the first fist-sized stones of acid hail shatter against the steel. The floor shudders again as debris collapses above. We huddle in the hydroponics bay, survivors pressed shoulder to shoulder, eyes wide. Holy green plants sprout around us, life in the belly of death. Water drips from overhead pipes into a gutter that leads to an open vat. Soft lamps glow above. The hum of generators is a lullaby. Breathless, I stand before the group. "You're safe for now," I say. "We have water, food, power, and a future." My voice cracks. They stare back with wonder, gratitude, fear. This is my reckoning. I traded secrecy for salvation. I risked betrayal for hope. I brought dozens into a place once damned to be humanity's last stronghold. Above us, the world rages on. Storms, earthquakes, the undead clawing at our gates. But below, in this chamber of flickering green life, we have a chance. A weapon against despair, a seed of resilience in the ruins. And as the hatch rattles one last time under the weight of fire and ruin, I know that moment will define the rest of my days. The moment I chose to broadcast hope, even when hope was the deadliest thing I could offer. Because some things are worth the risk of everything, even life itself. I step toward the nearest hydroponics tray, pluck a bright green leaf, and chew it slowly. The taste is triumph, bitter, sweet, and undeniably alive. This is the turning point. The moment when I stop running and start building. When our story shifts from survival to revival. And it begins here, in the heart of Haven Silo. The roar of the hatch slamming shut still echoes in my bones, but the worst is over, for now. In the tense hours that followed, we barricaded every entrance, rerouted power to redundant lines, and put every able body to work healing wounds and rationing food. When dawn's muted glow finally filtered through the reactor vents, I climbed to the hydroponics bay and surveyed the faces gathered there. Gaunt scavengers turned tentative farmers, broken engineers turned water tenders, frightened refugees turned hopeful settlers. My decision to broadcast Haven Silo's coordinates did more than draw survivors. It gave them purpose. Over 50 people arrived by nightfall, most guided by the weak but steady signal I patched through. They came on foot, on bicycles, even in battered pickups, some carrying children too young to remember the world above. In the days since, the silo has become a hive of hushed activity and sober celebration. Seedlings transplanted into larger trays, purification filters cycling clean water into gleaming barrels, solar panels scraped clean of dust and re-angled toward a tepid sun. But victory tastes bittersweet. In the chaos of the first influx, I lost track of Dolly's clan. I don't know if they made it past the acid hail or if they were cut down by the Horde outside. I haven't heard Lena's soft voice on the comms, haven't seen Ramon tending his makeshift infirmary. Each night I scan the channels for their call sign, Redbird Station, but only hear static. The cost of hope can be high, and I bear their potential loss like a stone in my gut. Yet even grief is tempered by unexpected joy. Yesterday, I watched a group of teenagers, once hollow-cheeked refugees, tend the lettuce beds with reverent care, watering each tray and laughing as new sprouts unfurled. This morning, I tasted my first real cup of coffee in months. Beans roasted over a clean flame, ground into powder by hand crank, dripping through cloth filters into my rusted tin mug. The taste was bitter and perfect, a reminder of morning, rituals long forgotten. We struck a bargain with the engineers in Sector B. They'll send a delegation down to install modular wind turbines in the old vent shafts, harvesting the subterranean air currents. In exchange, we'll ship them fresh produce and distilled water. Across the network of broadcasters, other sanctuaries have begun to coordinate. A bank of hydroponic domes in Minneapolis, a geothermal greenhouse in Salt Lake City, a solar-heated aquaculture tank in rural Maine. We're no longer isolated pockets of desperation. We're nodes in a fragile web of renewal. I walk the corridors at night, the hum of generators a lullaby, and wonder who I've become. The man who screamed into the static after losing his family, where is he now? The voice in the radio booth, once trembling with fear, now steady with purpose. I recognize him, but I barely recognize myself. Grief still coils in my chest, but it no longer paralyzes me. It drives me. Each memorial broadcast, each name read into the airwaves is an act of defiance against oblivion. I think of Jenna, Clara, and Rosa every day. I imagine them here, tending these green walls, tasting fresh water, breathing filtered air. And in those daydreams, I see them smiling at me, alive. Whether that vision is our future or just a cruel fantasy, I cling to it. Because without a dream of reunion, what else is there but ruin? I remember the night of the Crimson Night collapsing in mud so deep it felt like quicksand. I remember the acid rain burning my skin as I crawled toward the sound of a static-filled broadcast. I remember the hollow ache in my stomach when I realized I'd survived alone. Now the ache remains, but it is joined by something new, a sense of belonging. Beneath this concrete shell, in the glow of phosphorescent lamps, I am part of something greater than my own survival. Above us, the world has not healed. The acid clouds still choke the sky. The dust storms still scour the broken skyline. The Horde remains a threat. Last night, a small breach in a secondary vent tunnel forced us to deploy silent alarms and retrain the guards in the armory. We lost 3 brave souls who tried to hold the line. Their bodies were honored in a simple ceremony at the water vats. Names read, hands dipped in clean water. A single flare released into the darkness above. The earth swallowed their remains, and I whispered a promise to carry their stories forward. Down the corridor, seedlings break. Through the next generation of oak-studded soil mats, a pilot trial for reforestation once the world cools again. Outside the hatch, teams in protective gear prepare to spread ash-neutralizing lime across the mud flats, coaxing hardy pioneer species to take root. I field weekly reports of emerging green shoots on rooftops of abandoned skyscrapers, mosses and lichens that survived the fall. These small victories come with warnings. The air remains toxic at ground level. Water is still scarce in remote zones, and raiders roam the highways. Beyond our beacon's reach, the environmental crisis has not receded. It has simply shifted. Where desert once reigned, oases of desalination and hydroponics flicker like candles in the gloom. Where forests burned, carbon sequestration algae farms glow in underground tanks. Climate scientists in the geothermal cell report that if we can stabilize local microclimates using greenhouse domes, wind-powered turbines, and reflective canopies over charred plains, we may slow the feedback loops that drive global heating. But those projects require manpower, materials, and the fragile trust of hundreds of communities still scattered across shattered states. Each day brings a new report. A storm front stalled over Ohio, unleashing acid sheets. A rogue madrone grove. In California's highlands, showing resilience to heat. A northbound migration of survivors forming a convoy toward this silo, hoping the broadcast was true. I tally incoming messages like a toll collector at a bridge of hope, balancing their numbers against our capacity. If we're overwhelmed, we'll risk collapse from within. I used to believe survival meant solitude, a fortress, a perimeter, a last stand. Now I see the lie in that logic. Isolation is its own death sentence. Community, flawed, desperate, messy community, is our true salvation. I've watched engineering skills and farming skills, medical skills and storytelling skills blend into a living ecosystem of resilience. Engineers retrofit vents into wind turbines. Botanists design crop rotations that minimize nutrient depletion. Radio operators coordinate supply convoys across storm corridors. We are, in essence, the living network we once hoped for. I no longer broadcast alone. Each night I share airtime with at least one other node. A medtech in Sector B recounting new antiseptic formulas. A botanist in Minneapolis dispatching seed samples. A geologist in Salt Lake offering insights into thermal vent mapping. Our voices weave together into a chorus of expertise and encouragement. The static is not silence anymore. It's the unspoken effort of thousands of hands rebuilding a world. Yet doubt remains. Will the technology hold? Will the batteries degrade? Will the vents clog? Will the genetics of these hydroponic crops adapt to underground life, or mutate into something unrecognizable? Can we defend against the Horde if they discover the hum of these reactors? Most of all, can we forge a society resilient enough to survive climate collapse without repeating the mistakes that led us here? I take solace in small data points. The pH of our water remains stable. The output of the solar array is within expected variance, and newborn seedlings are healthy. But I keep one eye on the sensors. A sudden spike in CO2 in the airlocks could mean a swarm is nearby. A drop in water pressure could mean a leak in the distiller. A crack in the concrete could mean structural compromise. We live on a knife's edge, and every day is a calculation. This morning I climbed the ladder to the surface for the first time in weeks. I stood on the hatch rim as the dust storm dissolved into a thin veil. The sun was a pale disk, the skyline a mass of shattered silhouettes. I felt the wind, acrid, cold, electric, and closed my eyes. For a moment, I let the silence wash over me. No generators, no Horde, just the raw breath of a wounded world. When I opened my eyes, I saw new footprints in the mud, workers in protective boots carrying seed-filled pallets toward a cleared plot. I saw the first solar wind turbine blade catch a weak shaft of sunlight. I saw green, tiny shoots poking through dirt along the hatch rim, where a stray arrow of hope must have found purchase. I descended, heart lighter than it's been in months. The corridor lights hummed a steady welcome, and the survivors inside paused to greet me. Children ran to me with freshwater canteens. Adults nodded with grim satisfaction. We may not have blue skies again for decades, but in this moment, under these lamps and beneath this concrete, we have something better, the spark of renewal. The world beyond will continue to rage. Storms will come. The Horde will prowl, and the scars of our collapse will never fully heal. But down here, we are proving that life can take root, even in darkness. And as long as we have the courage to share our knowledge, to risk our safety for one another, to broadcast hope instead of despair, we stand a chance not just at survival, but at rewriting the ending of humanity's story. I press my hand to the control panel and flick the broadcast switch. Tonight, I will read the names of the fallen, share the latest updates from the hydroponics bay, and remind every listener that they are not alone. Then I will close my eyes and sleep to the hum of the generators, knowing that come dawn, we will wake to tend our delicate green world, because this is the aftermath, not an end, but the beginning of something new. A fragile, flickering dawn in a world that refused to die. And I, Miles Harrington, still hold the mic, still carry the static in my veins, still believe that as long as even one seed takes root, hope will never truly be silent. I don't know what tomorrow holds. Yesterday's dust storm has finally faded, revealing a sky the color of ash and a horizon sketched in broken silhouettes. The world above remains a graveyard of crumbled buildings and flooded streets. Here, beneath the earth, the hum of generators and the soft green glow of hydroponic lamps are our only reminders that life persists. We have claimed this subterranean sanctuary, and yet every breath comes with the weight of uncertainty. Hope is a fragile thing. Like the tender seedlings we nurture in the hydroponics bay, it can be crushed by a single misstep or nurtured into something strong enough to reshape the world. In these past weeks, I've watched the first true leaves of amaranth break free from their nutrient solution. watched communities stitch themselves together from threads of desperation and shared purpose. But every victory has its cost. I still carry the ache of the missing. Dolly's clan never arrived, and I fear their names will join the ledger of those we could not save. The raid that brought them to the hatch in the first place may have been their undoing. And though we've fortified every corridor, the Horde's pressure continues to test our defenses. A single breach in our airlock could flood these halls with the dead, extinguishing the spark we fought so hard to ignite. Yet, even as the world beyond these walls teeters on the brink, we've discovered something remarkable. Life can flourish in the darkest places. Yesterday, our makeshift orchard produced its first strawberry. Small, pale, but unmistakably real. We celebrated with hushed laughter and tears, each sweet bite a reminder that the earth, even ravaged, can yet be coaxed back to abundance. I broadcast that moment across every frequency I could reach. We have fruit again. We have life. The signal was weak, but I heard distant responses. Crackling voices thrilled to hear of a harvest. It was a small victory, but in our world, small victories are everything. Hope without preparation is folly. We've mapped routes to neighboring enclaves, the geothermal gardens in Salt Lake City, where heat from dormant volcanoes keeps algae, farms thriving, the solar orchards in rural Maine, powered by wind turbines repurposed from dam remnants, and even a rumored oasis in the Rockies, where glacial runoff still flows. Each of these nodes faces its own trials: fuel shortages, structural decay, raider attacks. But together they form the blueprint of a new civilization. Tomorrow, I will broadcast updated coordinates and share our lessons in water filtration, hydroponics, and silent alarm systems. Even if only half the listeners can make it here, we will grow stronger through connection. Still, we must steel ourselves for hardship ahead. The acid rain is not gone. The clouds still darken the surface sky, and each downpour eats away at metal and morale alike. Fuel stocks dwindle, and every scavenging party risks confrontation with raiders who see our lights as invitations to pillage. The cold seasons loom too. Ventilation shafts frost over, fungal spores adapt to humidity, and we brace for respiratory illnesses that could sweep through our crowded corridors. Survival is not a single act, but a continuous process of adaptation, caution, and communal effort. Standing in the hydroponics bay, I still think of Jenna, Clara, and Rosa. I imagine them here, faces bright with curiosity as they plant seeds for the first time, hands sticky with soil. Whether that vision is one day real or a bittersweet hallucination, I hold on to it like a lifeline. In my more honest moments, I admit that my greatest failure was believing I could save them with words alone. I anchored my hope in a broadcast signal, not in the concrete actions that might have secured their safety. Now I strive to marry promise with purpose. Each syllable I send across the airwaves carries instructions. Each instruction a building block for a future they and all of us deserve. We used to think walls and weapons could keep us alive. Now we know that walls without windows suffocate us, and weapons without trust tear us apart. It is our shared knowledge, our willingness to teach and to learn, that forms our strongest bulwark against despair. Today, a group of engineers is designing a secondary circuit for the generator farm. In exchange, farmers will share fungal cultivation techniques that extend shelf life for protein biscuits. Tomorrow, medics will conduct a workshop on scavenging medicinal herbs for antiseptics. We are forging a society built not on conquest, but on cooperation. Above ground, nature is far from healed. Vines creep through shattered glass. Moss blankets the statues of forgotten heroes. But these are not the manic blooms of a world fully recovered. They are the tentative green of pioneers staking a claim in a hostile land. Each tendril is a testament to resilience, not a promise of paradise. And yet, that resilience gives me hope. If a weed can push through concrete, perhaps humanity too can find a way through the rubble of its own making. The road ahead is narrow, and some will choose not to walk it. I've intercepted transmissions from enclaves wedded to isolationist doctrines, fortified compounds where entry is barred to all but the pure of blood, or the strongest fighters. They monitor our broadcasts, scoff at our idealism, and dismiss our calls for unity. I fear them more than I fear the Horde, for their hate is a virulent contagion, one that could spread and undo everything we've built. My final message must pierce their defenses. Unity is not weakness. Unity is survival. So here is what I offer. To every listener, from the lone wanderer in the wasteland to the militia commander holed up in a fortress of steel, stay alive, but don't merely survive. Build. Share your water. Teach your neighbor to farm. Protect your walls, but leave room for hope to grow. Broadcast your knowledge on every frequency, and listen for others doing the same. Keep your radio on, even when the static is thickest, because it may be a friend calling in the next moment. Keep your lanterns lit, however dim, because they guide more than your own steps. They guide the path for every soul still breathing. I close my eyes and let that message echo in the quiet of the bunker. The air is cool, tinged with the scent of fresh lettuce and filtered water. In the distance, I hear the whisper of new conversations, strategies being plotted, seeds being ordered, alliances being forged. These voices are fragile, like the hydroponic roots clinging to nutrient trays, but they are growing. This conclusion is no finale. It is not the end of our story, but the promise of its next chapter. We will lose more along the way, some to the Horde, some to the elements, some to ourselves. Yet we will also gain more. Fresh discoveries in subterranean farming, new alliances across fractured states, perhaps even breakthroughs in antiviral research that could finally break the Horde's relentless march. We will carry our losses as lessons and our victories as beacons. Tonight, I will sign off with a simple refrain. Miles Harrington, Sector C Radio, wishing you safety in the darkness and strength in the dawn. Stay alive. Stay human. Then I will let the static rise, a reminder that even in silence there is possibility, an empty canvas on which we can draw the future we choose. So, to every soul tuning in, to every heart clinging to the spark of tomorrow, know this. The world may be broken, but we are not. We are the gardeners of the underground, the engineers of new dawns, the storytellers who refuse to let our voices die. And as long as one light flickers in the dark, as long as one seed takes root in the rubble, there is hope.